You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, welcome back. I meant to hit this button. Go to my iPad, please. Eugene made this point. It's right there. Y'all see right there? Joe Biden's agenda for the black community. It's right there. If you click the button, you will see what is on here. Okay? Create wealth in the black community, invest in our community through housing, protect and build on Obamacare, invest in our students and educators, support education beyond high school, invest in the clean energy revolution and environmental justice, make a transformational investment in our country's infrastructure, strengthen the right to vote, strengthen America's commitment to justice, end violence against women. Those are what's on that agenda. Real quick, I'm gonna go to our panel before I go to my next guest. It's there, Cleo, but you said, though, you gotta communicate it. Okay, Cleo, how do you do it?
You make it a part of the discussion when you're running for president. You make it something that you demonstratively break down for your audience while you being a candidate, while you're trying to prove yourself to the people that you want to vote for you in terms that are undeniable. That is sitting on a website is not good enough. That is there is good, but it's not good enough.
So you're saying he's never discussed it?
Well, I don't know if he's never discussed it. I haven't watched every debate. I haven't watched all of Joe Biden's moves.
Right, but if you're saying he needs to do this, but you haven't seen the debates, how do you know he hasn't done it?
Well, because the ones I have seen it, he hasn't done it enough for me.
Hold on, you said enough for me, which means he's done it, but he doesn't enough. So which one is it? He has it, or he's not done it enough?
Okay, I'm saying two things. One is I have not followed all of his movements. He might have done something, is very likely he's done something that I've never seen. When I have seen him debate, I have not seen him or any of the candidates talk about issues wrong to black people in ways that made it real clear that they had our back.
Well, and this is what I would say, Eugene, part of that problem is that's but that's also what happens when you also don't have discussions where you don't have debates or town halls on black networks where black people are. I mean, let's just cut to the chase, y'all. You're not going to have those conversations in depth on mainstream networks that are white controlled. You're not. So, I mean, we can, it's like we want these things to happen on MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, ABC. That ain't happening. So part of the issue here is, which I've been saying, I'm going to need black networks to also wake the hell up to share that kind of information for our people. I just want one black network to have a damn town hall with Joe Biden or even Trump. Give me one.
Enrolling that has not occurred. It does. And recognize, and the black people have a reaction to that. But I want to say real quick, they'll probably, if I may.
Real quick, but I'm going to Eugene, then Scott.
Ever since I've known of you, you have been able to brilliantly address political issues. What you just got finished breaking down was all true. I support it. It was brilliant. If anybody actually followed step of what you recommended, we would be in good shape. There's some perspectives and states of mind in the black community that maybe one day we'll deal with that have an impact on how black people respond, as particularly black males. I said before on your show that there's a lot of black males who are going to support Trump and or who are going to talk like P. Diddy in terms of being neutral and need somebody to prove something to them. There's a perspective, there's a reaction to a hostile environment that black men live in that this society and that Democrats has not resolved.
Got it.
The police brutality, the portrayal in media, the criminality, the over-incarceration, et cetera, has not been resolved, and there has not been a Democratic Party speaker that with some power and clout that's act like they care about that issue enough to change it. So, along with what how I described Obama earlier, these things have a cumulative effect that throws a wrench in whether people should trust Biden or anybody else or not, and they have to prove themselves, and they usually don't. And because they don't, that's why black people don't go to the polls. They went to the polls for Obama because he was black.
All right, Eugene, then Scott, and then I'm going to my next guest. Go, Eugene.
The thing is this, a black network eventually has to step up, and with proper planning, it actually could be a cost-neutral situation. It would have been a cost-neutral situation because you're going to have sponsors that are going to sit up and want that airtime. And it didn't happen this cycle. It absolutely 2022, 2024. It absolutely has to happen.
Scott?
One of the Democratic presidential debates was at a historical black college.
On ABC. It was on ABC.
It was a damn disgrace that the whatever you define as the African American agenda or issues important to African American was not discussed.
Well, in fact, you actually had a much deeper discussion about black people at the debate that was on ABC that was in New Hampshire versus the one that was at Texas Southern University. I was there. You're absolutely right. Go ahead.
That's right. And the last debate where there was more than two candidates, there was a substantive debate. Almost each candidate who didn't look like anybody on this network trying to put forth their African-American bona fides on a litany of issues, which was really surprising. I think all of the Democratic presidential candidates had an agenda in writing, but also in their discussions. But remember, the first three, you didn't get to South Carolina where you had black people in the majority voting. So I think what Biden's attraction, or why Biden is attractive to African Americans, is not just Barack Obama, but he's been there and he's comfortable talking about these issues. He doesn't talk to black people or at them. He talks to them because of his years of public service, and that's why they trust him. That's why he won South Carolina, and that's why he's going to be the Democratic nominee. We cannot ignore that, nor can we hold him or anyone else to some racial litmus test on perfection, because he's imperfect as well. So I think he was convincing. I think all the Democratic candidates were convincing. But Roland, you said something about the definition of power. Your soliloquy or your presentation earlier was a definition of power, not just political power, but any power, and that is accountability. And so I think our work with Biden and the Democratic Party generally has to be about that organization build-out. And so I think we're going to be in good shape and better shape, but black people got to vote in massive numbers, not just register.
But bottom line is you can't vote unless you can't get to them to vote unless you register them. You can't register them unless you educate and get them to talk about what they care about and what matters to them. And so it all goes hand in hand. Every single night, we've got some of the top black experts. You're not going to see them on cable news or broadcast news because you swear black people aren't experts when it comes to this health crisis. That's why we have this show and why we do what we do every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining us right now is retired General Russell Honoré, the nation's first black Surgeon General, Dr. Joycelyn Elders. John Hope Bryant, he's the founder of Operation Hope. Senator Kamala Harris of California, Dr. Cedrina Calder, retired General Lloyd Austin, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Commissioner Omari Hardick, Bureau President in Brooklyn, Eric Adams, Dr. Joseph Graves, America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens, Dr. Corey Abear, Patel Salt, Howard University student, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dr. Christy McDowell, Benja Ajilore, senior economist at the Center for American Progress, Gilda Daniels, again, author of the book, The Crisis of Voter Suppression in America. 4 stars, General Kip Ward. Dr. Oliver Brooks is president of the National Medical Association, president of the American Medical Association, Dr. Patrice Harris. Joby Benjamin, Dr. Alexia Gaffney, infectious disease specialist, Dr. Georges Benjamin, executive director of the American Public Health Association, Malcolm Nance, family medicine physician, Dr. Jen Cardle, Dr. Tashaka Cunningham, a molecular biologist, Kat Stafford. She's a national race and ethnicity reporter for the Associated Press. Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, who is the president of Howard University, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from the state of New York, William Spriggs, AFL-CIO economist, Andrea James, executive director of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. All right, let's go to Capitol Hill. Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, mental health clinician Jamie Singletary, Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Brayboy, as well as Dylan Hayrie, ACLU Justice Division strategist. Dr. Cindy Duke, she's a virologist. Principal Steve Perry of Capitol Prep. Health and wellness specialist Dr. Yolandra Hancock. Desmond Meade, president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Michael Harriet with The Root. The Mina McWhorter, founder of Love by the Hand. Dr. Julianne Malvo, economist, president, Emerita Bennett College. Coroner Michael Fowler is the mayor of Atlanta. Keisha Lance Bottoms, mental health therapist Suzette Clark. Justin Gibney, attorney and political strategist, and Bishop Vincent Matthews Jr. Dr. Suzette McKinney, Brittney, CEO and Executive Director of the Illinois Medical District, Dr. Leon McDougall, President-elect of the National Medical Association, Jana Bailey, Mayor of Moss Point, Mississippi, Mario King. We're going to keep driving this thing to make sure our people are fully aware, safe, protected from coronavirus. You getting the top medical experts, top business experts, top political experts, top religious experts, because that's why we do what we do. Unapologetically and unfiltered. Ain't nobody else in the black media space doing what we do. Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, let's talk politics. Joe Biden's jobs and economic recovery plan is that we must build our economy back better than it was before the COVID-19 crisis. He gave his speech on yesterday, saying that we have two overlapping crises. The pandemic shines a light on racial disparities in health and healthcare, and the economic crisis has hit black and brown communities especially hard, with black unemployment being at 15.4%, Latino at 14.5%, and businesses owned by black, Latino, and Asian Americans closing down at alarming rates. Joining me right now is someone from his home state, Delaware State Senator Darius Brown. Senator Brown, glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What really jumps out when we talk about this plan, what black folks want to know is specifically, how will a Joe Biden presidency benefit black people? Not Latinos, not Asians, not white women, everyone else, but specifically African Americans.
Well, thank you, Roland, for having me. And, this election and campaign is personal to me because Joe is family. The Bidens are family to me and for all of those that are in the state of Delaware, particularly African Americans, that in the state of Delaware, African Americans make up nearly 40% of the state population, including all other minorities. And then so we look at the Build Back Better plan as a way to ensure that our country, particularly African American communities, have the investment that they need, because we know and recognize that by the year 2050, our nation will become a majority minority country. And also by that same year, 2050, it is projected that the average net wealth of African American households will be $0. And so when we look at this campaign and the choice between the two candidates that are running for president, Joe Biden is the only one that has articulated a plan to invest in African American communities. He's not someone that's new to the relationship with African Americans. I, as a state senator in the state of Delaware, the third and youngest African American to serve in the Delaware State Senate, served on his U.S. Senate staff and have worked with him and have a relationship with him over the years. His late son, Bo, and daughter, Ashley, were with me when I was sworn in to city council when I first got elected to public office, and they've been with me ever since. And so what he is doing as running for president and his investments is ensuring that we have the investments in our neighborhoods, home ownership, creating wealth. We recognize that home ownership is the very fundamental and foundational way to create wealth in the black community. It's investing in small business and small and mid-sized firms. Roland, you know personally, there's lots of African Americans in the state of Delaware. Many of them are your friends. And so we want to ensure that African Americans around the country understand Joe Biden's relationship to African Americans in the state and African Americans around the country and his commitment to invest in our community.
Well, the reality is this here. When Vice President Joe Biden was there with President Barack Obama, black and other firms outperformed white firms when it came to the management of TARP funds, but they did not get an increase in that. And so the thing here is the power of the president is real. When we talk about, federal government deposits a whole lot of money in various banks. The question is, will dollars be shifted to black banks? That's one of the things that took place under President Bill Clinton. When we look at the Pentagon, Pentagon spends $600 million a year annually on advertising. How much of that is going to black media? Those are the sort of tangible questions. And not only that, you look at the federal pension fund, nearly $1 trillion. BlackRock pretty much controls all of that. Black people are managing a minuscule amount. And so really what black folks want to know is, are to break down these systems? Is Joe Biden going to say, we're going to make sure that we're not going to continue to keep having white hedge funds and investment funds controlling those dollars, and we're going to make sure, using our power, to say you're going to start advertising in significant ways with black media? Because what does that then do? It causes black media to actually build capacity, allows us to be able to do more, be able to hire more people. The same thing for other businesses.
Yeah, Roland, the African American community knows very well that between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, Joe Biden is the only person committed to investing in our community and has a record in leading reinvestment after the economic downturn. And so also with that, we already know Joe Biden's commitment through his Build Back Better plan is that what he's going to do for America and for African Americans is ensure that we generate wealth through home ownership, through small business loans. He's going to work within the federal government system to make sure that the Consumer Federal Bureau is ensuring that our credit scores and our credit rate is being assessed differently than it has been historically in the past. He's also committed to ensuring that he's going to look at student loans and addressing student loan debt and moving that student loan debt from us, which for many of us as African Americans, we recognize and understand is a barrier for upward mobility and financial freedom. So those are commitments that Joe Biden has made that Donald Trump has not articulated. He continues to be divisive. He continues, as Mayor Lance Bottom talked about, continues to push and press upon the pain of our country instead of the promise of our country. And Joe Biden has been committed in saying that he wants to restore the soul of our nation. And that also helps us as African Americans.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Let's go to our panel here. Brittney, I want to start with you. This is what it boils down to. How will Biden use the power of the presidency to be able to affect the economics of black folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the community, we're certainly going to be voting for Joe Biden. Historically speaking, black folks, specifically black women, have always supported Joe Biden. And let me say this before I get into my real comments. I lived in Delaware. I was Miss Delaware. Beau Biden was one of the most beautiful people I've ever met, rest his soul. Jill Biden as well. They're good, nice people. But we are going to have to, once we get him in office, and we are going to have to really push him because Joe Biden is a moderate. He is a moderate Democrat. So we are really going to have to push him in terms of his police reform ideology, in terms of, I heard a lot of banter about, we have to get wealth back into the black community. So, yeah, it does come through housing. It does come through private property. It does come through the economy. And we know he's more legitimate than Trump in terms of reversing the virus, in terms of, building back the economy. But we're going to have to continue to push him and ensure that he is putting things that are set in stone federally to help the black community, because historically speaking, he is a moderate.
Scott, it's very interesting. I was looking at some of the comments here on YouTube. I was looking at some of the comments on Facebook. And when I did the State of Black America event in Indianapolis with Stewart Speakers Bureau, I said this to the audience. I said, if you ask black people what are the top 5 issues, money is not going to be in the top 5. What often happens is we as African Americans, we talk about criminal justice reform, mass incarceration. We'll talk about racism. We'll talk about health. We'll talk about education. We'll talk about environmental justice. But let's just be clear. Money is tied to every single one of those things. I think we do ourselves a disservice by not honing in on money. But what I mean by that is where the money is and how the money is being distributed. Like I said, when I sat at the Treasury Department under Obama in 2010, and they said that black and other minority firms were outperforming the white firms on the management of TARP funds, my immediate reaction was, does that mean they're going to get more? Because where I come from, if I'm doing better than them, I should be able to get more. And I think, to me, this is where we have to be, in that we also have to understand where the money is. And so, again, when Bill Clinton was president, Congressman Maxine Waters was the one who said, hey, Pentagon, they spending $600 million annually on advertising. How much going to black media? So people are sitting here at home. When we keep thinking, when we talk about money, not realizing money is being spent on so many. You in law, they spending money on outside law, legal folks. They're spending money elsewhere. How many black law firms? How many law firms that have black partners? See, that's the kind of stuff where we have to be demanding and saying, all right, Joe, show me where the money. And guess what? He can do a lot of this, and he don't need the approval of Congress to do it.
No, he can certainly do it. But the reality is that we've got to make him do it. You know, my biggest argument with Obama, or rather my brothers and sisters under Obama, was we never left the inauguration. Whatever the president does, he does it because you make him do it, not because he just happens to agree with you. And we got to stay vigilant with Joe Biden. Now, black people are socialized to want a good job. In D.C., a good government job. The monies that you're talking about are about entrepreneurship training, employing people, and gaining wealth, and being part of the working rich as an entrepreneur or business owner, right? And so there are only a fraction of us who implement that as an action, as opposed to, I'd love to have my own business. But doing business with the government, doing business with the private sector, demanding our fair share, and making Biden put programs in place that make access to capital, access to leadership, infrastructure as an entrepreneur for small black businesses that can get to be big black businesses or big businesses generally, is where the president can help by executive order, by putting money into these agencies and focusing and targeting on poor people, poor areas, black people, brown people, black and brown areas, and giving them access to capital and entrepreneurship training to ensure their success. That's just a start. But if he does that and we make him do that, we're going to be going a long way in regard to creating capital and wealth in our communities, because that is the key and that is the answer.
And Robert, at the end of the day, if people actually study the Black Freedom Movement, and if they look at the history of Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition,
it was an economic component.
They understood money. The number of black millionaires who were created. When Operation Breadbasket, when they actually cut those MOUs, it wasn't just they wanted jobs. They wanted jobs for black folks. They wanted managerial and senior level jobs. They wanted black products on the shelves. They wanted them to use black businesses for other areas of that particular company. They wanted them to deposit money in black banks. It was multifaceted. But Robert, we have to have organized infrastructure, to Sky Points, to make that possible, which is what I laid out when Diddy made his big announcement. I said, man, look, you can't just make an announcement. You got to have the infrastructure to say, this is how we're going to actually make it happen. Right. And that might mean letting Biden know if he wins, we'll drop 1,000 people in front of the White House and chain ourselves to the fence to get your attention on these issues. And yes, black people did not do that with Obama because we were so elated with the first black president, we forgot he was the 44th. Robert.
Exactly.
Well, you know, just as Reverend Jackson said, for 50 years, it's jobs, justice, and equal opportunity and the American dream. And that's what we have to be fighting for at this point, because we've done all of the symbolism. You know, I drove to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration the first time. You know, we all were excited in 2008, but now it's 2020, and we need to have some tangible benefits put on the wall. I remember 1959 going to the 1960 election, JFK said, I can solve all of your problems with the stroke of my fountain pen. We need to be demanding that of this upcoming administration, because what we've seen from Trump is an imperial presidency, a presidency which dares the Congress and dares the court to overturn what they have done, who would rather ask for forgiveness than beg for permission on many of these issues. So I want to see that same militancy, that same imperialism in the White House. I want to see that that on the behalf of Black America? How much money is the Pentagon spending on research and development at places like Boston College or Harvard or Caltech? And how much of that can be done at FAMU or Clark Atlanta or Alabama A&M? What we have to realize is the money is there, and it does not have, we can't just sit here and say, well, Mitch McConnell won't let me do it. Well, John Boehner and Eric Cantor, there's always going to be an excuse not to do it. Do all the things that you can with a stroke of a pen, and once that money is appropriated, we have to demand that it goes to our communities, because if we get okey-doked again, as the prophet George W. Bush said, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, you ain't gonna fool me again.
Well, but remember, but remember, Democrats only have to take four seats to control the Senate. If Democrats, the polls are showing right now that Mark Kelly is up big in Arizona. You've got Hickenlooper up big in Colorado. You've got Susan Collins down 5 points in Maine. That means if Democrats pick up Tillis' seat in North Carolina, very doable, pick up one or two of those seats in Georgia, or pick up the seat in Montana, this is assuming Doug Jones loses, he is running in Alabama, they now control the Senate. But here's the piece. That's great. But here's what's going to happen. If they get a slim majority in the Senate, what's going to happen is that gives more power to conservative senators like Joe Manchin to hold stuff up like we saw even when Obama was president. Everybody forgets the first 2 years Obama was president. Yes, Democrats controlled the Senate, but you had folks like Joe Lieberman who held things up. And so you didn't necessarily have, actual control because they play games with that. But again, this is where Black people have to be willing to make those demands. I'm just going to give y'all a real quick story. We were just telling y'all about Lisa Jackson, who was the highest ranking African-American at Apple. Well, let me tell y'all what this actually happened. When they had the BP oil spill down in Louisiana, Obama, when they went down there, they had a meeting, and so that was a woman who was a former head of the EPA. Why is her name escaping me? I think it's Wheeler. It's escaping me right now. She was a former head of the EPA, and she was Obama's environmental czar. So they said, I think Carol Wheeler, I think is what it is. So they were like, she's the only person who's going to be speaking. And I'm going, hold up. The head of the Environmental Protection Agency is a Black woman, Lisa Jackson, who's from New Orleans. And so they said to all the media, well, they only sending out Wheeler to all of the shows. And I went, so just so y'all know, this is exactly what I told the Obama White House. Look at here. It's only going to be one person talking on my show, Washington Watch, this weekend about this damn oil spill in Louisiana. And that's going to be Lisa Jackson. So y'all figure out whatever y'all want to figure out. But all I know is I ain't accepting nobody except Lisa Jackson. Now, come Friday when we tape that show, Lisa Jackson walked into that studio, did the interview. Point I'm making is I was unwilling to accept whoever the Obama administration sent to me, and I'm just going to give y'all one more, okay? We covered the My Brother's Keeper deal. I got one interview with Obama in all his 8 years. I got one interview, it was 2010. They kept, and they wanted us to cover this and cover this and cover this. And I was like, okay. So it finally got to the point where I said, no, that's all right. So they would call me and they would be like, hey, could you have Broderick with My Brother's Keeper? No. I said, I ain't covering nothing else until Obama consent to an interview. And they called me, they're like, but I said, can we do a special? No. Could we have? No. Matter of fact, they had a panel at Congressional Black Caucus AOC. I pulled my cameras out. They were like, well, I said, no. If I'm not going to keep covering stuff if he not going to sit down with us. So at some point, you've got to be willing to walk away from the table as opposed to accept nothing. And all I'm saying to black, here's the deal. I want Trump out. Hashtag fire Trump in November. But let me be real clear right now. And I told y'all this in 2016 after he won. And I told y'all this after the midterms in 2018. And I said this to Tom Perez, who heads the DNC. I said this to the DCCC, to the DSCC, to the Democratic Governors Association, to Emily's List, and all these other groups out there. These folk gonna spend more than $1 billion on this election. Let me let y'all know right now, and I told y'all, black folks are not going to be political sharecroppers. We're not going to till the soil and work the land, and then other folk who don't look like us benefit. So while the Biden campaign right now and the Democrats are gearing up, we damn sure better see substantial investments in black media when it comes to advertising. We better see substantial investment when it comes to black operatives, money on the ground, black folks who have audio-visual companies, black folks who have paper, black folks who have catering. That's what it is about. And I'm telling you, I want to see Trump absolutely gone, which means Biden needs to take him out. But the day after the election and the day after the inauguration, I and others will be standing there saying, now it's time for there to be a return on our investment. Now, y'all, I don't make idle threats. I've texted this to Tom Perez. I've told the Biden people, don't come at me with small money. Don't come at black media with small money. Don't say we got y'all in the bag and we gonna go spend our money out there on some white women in the suburbs. No, you need to make sure that there's not a 2.4% drop of black voters like it was in 2016. That means having black surrogates on here. That means having the conversations. But I'm telling y'all right now, don't you have, I want y'all to hear me loud and clear, Democrats, don't you have your white media buyers playing metric games with black media? The budget had better be substantial, and if it's not, I will call you out every single day. How you spend with black people in the election is how you will spend with black people in the White House. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. All right, folks, according to a recent election prediction model developed by the George Washington University Graduate School of Political Management, former Vice President Joe Biden will win November's presidential election. Once that is accomplished, what's in it for black folks? Vice President Biden recently announced Lift Every Voice, the Biden plan for Black America. Also on yesterday, he released a series of ads targeting African Americans. If y'all could get those ads ready, I would appreciate it. Joining me right now is South Carolina State Senator Marlon Kimsen. Senator Kimsen, glad to have you on the show.
Good to be with you, Roland.
South Carolina obviously is going to be a huge state. Yesterday we had Jamie Harrison on the show. He is running, of course, against Senator Lindsey Graham, trying to unseat him. Democrats need to pick up 4 seats in the Senate to take control of the United States Senate. But when it comes to African Americans, the plan that Biden has, does it actually address the concerns of African Americans, folks who are saying they want to see real strong results, real initiatives when it comes to our needs?
I think it does. With all plans, you can always improve upon the plan. But I have reviewed the Lift Every Voice and Sing plan and the racial equity component of the Build Back America plan that was crafted with the input of many who've been at the table advocating for economic parity and true criminal justice reform. Those such as Jim Clyburn, Maxine Waters, and others have been doing this for a long time now, and so they had substantial input. For me, the challenge being in a red state is about money. Politics without economics is a symbol without substance. And when I review this plan, it has real money in here for Black America. $100 billion affordable housing fund, a $50 billion investment in incubator businesses for people that look like us, $70 billion. I think you can appreciate this, Roland. Going towards historically black colleges. I'm a graduate of Morehouse College, pledged Omega Psi Phi. And so we are...
that down right there. You may want to calm that down, but go ahead.
We are, we need research institutions. And so we look at the money follows. Now let's talk about criminal justice reform, because that's been the subject of a lot of the discussion here tonight. Your guests have all been right. This is about appointing people of color to the federal bench who have an appreciation for the Voting Rights Act and the other civil rights initiatives that many of our ancestors and people before me in the state Senate fought for. And the fact is that the plutocrat Don Trump has not named any significant people of color to judiciary positions. He's been able to confirm more than 200 judges who will interpret, if we get a voting rights bill passed, they will interpret that bill. And that means trouble for all of the cries that you hear for greater reform in terms of criminal justice reform, police misconduct, voting rights. And so Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a comprehensive plan for criminal justice reform. They call to let's look at our drug offenses and laws, call for an independent ending of mandatory minimums. They want to ban the box so that people coming out of prison won't have to answer job applications. That first question is, have you ever been arrested or have you ever been convicted? And so these are the types of the initiatives when we start talking about criminal justice reform. I'll just finally say this. One of the things that we really have to look at when it comes to these shooting deaths and litigating these civil cases, I'm an attorney by trade, partner at Motley Rice in Charleston, South Carolina, and One of the things that halts these trials is the issue of qualified immunity. And then where an officer can't be personally held liable. As a lawyer, I can personally be held liable in a courtroom should I act grossly negligent. That's not so the case in qualified immunity. And then once you even get beyond that, you have the doctrine of sovereign immunity, which often caps damages in the absence of proof of gross negligence. So we have to have a wholesale attack as we move forward with the Black agenda. And I think the Lift Every Voice and Sing plan and the racial equity component of the Build Back Better plan addresses many of our needs.
This is an ad that was released yesterday by the Joe Biden campaign. We want to play it, then we'll talk about it.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
But they've got the experience.
I'm still in shock 3 or 4 years later that we're in this position now. Our democracy is at a pivotal point.
From the top, we don't trust our government. We see the trouble we're in economically. We've got 170,000 Americans dead, and yet this president will do anything he can to make it seem like things are better than they are.
I did more for the Black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
It's our responsibility. If we don't lead that effort to make things better, we can't ask other people to do it. There is no good reason not to vote.
Right, we need to have individuals that are in office like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
They are our best shot to take us forward.
And that's what makes me incredibly hopeful, but we really do have to work for this thing.
To the thousands who did not vote, we need you to show up for our future and for our country.
You cannot sit on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
Was pretty funny in that ad, State Senator, as those brothers in that barbershop laughed to hear Donald Trump say how he's done more for Black people since Abraham Lincoln, which is just beyond stupid.
It's a fantasy, and this guy is in a fantasy world. As I mentioned earlier, he is an orange plutocrat who only caters to the wealthy. He has done nothing for Black people. And we got to call him out. We cannot afford, particularly for African American men, to register the numbers that they did the last election cycle. I think people were trying to give him a bit of doubt, but he has shown his true color. This man is the reason why this nation is in crisis. This man is the reason why that there are over 200,000 deaths due to COVID. You compare that number with Ebola, a handful of deaths, or H1N1, a couple of thousand deaths, I think under 5,000. This man has stoked the fuel of white supremacists. I mean, who would have ever thunk it? Who would have ever thunk it that we have people in Charlottesville, Virginia, walking down with tiki torches talking about white power? I mean, this is ridiculous. And he says that there are good people on both sides. And so, if anything, the Black community, including our brothers and sisters, we ought to be voting in large numbers. The Exhibit A, B, and C is the record of the dismal failure of Donald Trump governing this country. Now, let me just say this also. The brother talked about voting. In that Shot Talk special, what I've discussed with many, including Congressman Clyburn, who is calling for a month of voting, like a tailgate party. We're going to have a tailgate party for a whole month. In South Carolina, it starts, early voting or absentee voting starts October 5th. I would encourage people not so much to rely on the mail,
right?
But take your ballot to the polling place, particularly in those states that have early or absentee voting, to make sure that ballot is counted. All
right, then, sir. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us, State Senator Marlon Kimsen. We'll keep pushing the need for people to get registered and be sure to vote in this election.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you so very much. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. Seek.com is a black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They have these amazing products. They have their virtual reality headset right here. Allows for you to take your cell phone, pop it right into here. You can watch their virtual reality content on their site, Seek.com. You can also, of course, watch other 360-degree video, and it puts you right there in the same space. So that's this particular headset. They also have their 360-degree 4D headphones, folks, which are great for you to be able to do gaming. You can also, of course, use it for music, for videos as well. It's a really solid. Solid deal here. I love these headphones. Again, when I'm able to, when I'm walking and working out and doing things along those lines. And so you want to check this out. Again, these headphones right here, which are pretty cool. Go to Seek.com, CEEK.com. Use the promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. And then you'll get a discount on one or both of these products. And so we certainly appreciate Seek.com being a partner with Roland Martin Unfiltered. In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. One of the issues that Donald Trump thinks that he can win on is the economy. He's proclaimed he's the great job creator, how he built this economy, which is a lie, which is a huge lie. It was, again, a thriving economy when President Barack Obama left office. But Moody Analytics Analysis, they've released a report that says Joe Biden's economic plan will create 18.6 million jobs in his first term. That's 7.4 million jobs more than Donald Trump. Biden's plan is estimated to create 66% more jobs than Trump in the next 4 years. Joining us to break this thing down is Dr. William Spriggs. He's an economist for Howard University. Dr. Spriggs, look, the issue of the economy is one that is paramount. You've got these white conservatives, these white men who are supporting Donald Trump. You've got Joe Biden trying to appeal to these white women who back Trump. 53% of the vote in 53% of white women who voted for Donald Trump in 2016. This Moody's analysis, how did they reach this conclusion?
Well, it's based on sort of common sense economics. It's the things that we know generate jobs. And what we got from Trump was, if we give massive tax cuts to corporations and to the richest people on the planet, they're going to make investments. Well, we gave them the tax cuts. They didn't make the investments. And then we hit COVID, and we've lost more jobs than when he took office. And because the corporations squandered the tax cuts on stock buybacks, we didn't have a better financial position for our corporations going into the downturn. What you see in the Biden plan is what we know makes jobs. You invest in infrastructure and job creation. You actually talk about real job creation. So that is what's going to make things different. The effect of increasing investment in higher education, getting a better qualified workforce, that's what makes jobs grow.
This, of course, I mean, is a big deal because, again, Trump swears that because he's this great businessman and he's out there talking about how he's done so much for black people and things are just going so well. Well, if you look at these numbers here, first of all, the unemployment rate for African Americans was 7.2, 7.7 when he was inaugurated. Now it's around 14%. It's doubled. Now he loves to ignore COVID. Just like Larry Kudlow yesterday was talking to the folks, and he was getting pressed by a Fox News radio reporter who kept talking about, no, what are the poverty numbers now? What are they now? And Kudlow, well, why are you nitpicking? He's like, that's not nitpicking. But if the Biden plan is going to create 18.6 million jobs, that has to benefit black people.
It's designed to benefit black people because a large part of the investment are in the types of jobs that we hold. So the infrastructure includes the care economy. And we need an expansion of that right now. Everybody understands that with kids being stuck home that you can't get labor force participation back up for women. So you have to have a strategy that's aimed at helping women get a path to the job market. That is essential for creating more jobs. The difference between what Trump did, trickle-down economics, does not generate net new jobs because it doesn't expand opportunity. It just lets fat companies feed off of skinny companies. When you expand opportunity, you're making the pie bigger. That's how you really create net new jobs. And that means you have to give opportunities to people who don't have them. That's how you create more jobs.
And so this analysis, hopefully folks will actually see that. I want to bring my panel right here as well. Reese, when we talk about the economy, again, Trump has tried to convince people. He's tried to convince, and a lot of people, black folks and others, who buy into this notion that, oh, he's this great businessman. The debt has exploded in America. That's first. They don't want to deal with that. And the reality is we're not seeing the incomes rise, and we're seeing companies pocketing significant amounts of money. They took the money from the tax cut, reinvested in the stocks, which only helped the shareholders, not the workers.
Right. But unfortunately, he is winning on the economy based on polls. People believe that Donald Trump is stronger on the economy than Joe Biden, even though the entire strength of Trump's economy is what he inherited from the Obama-Biden administration and ran into the ground with his abdication of authority and responsibility to adequately address COVID-19. So this is a messaging issue that the Biden campaign has. Indisputably and quantitatively, their policies are better. The problem is, number one, you have a media that's a mainstream media, let me be clear about that, that's interested in perpetuating the Trump Republican Mitch McConnell narratives rather than doing reporting like what you're doing right now and showing the different analysis that shows that the Biden-Harris plan creates 10 million more jobs than the Trump plan. And these are jobs that are needed because we've lost millions of jobs throughout this COVID crisis. And as you pointed out, even as jobs have returned, not a net gain, but just a return, Black people have been left behind in the return of these jobs. And so this is a message that could be a winning message if the Biden campaign, I'm not criticizing them, but what I'll say is that the Biden campaign should spend the next 39 days talking the economy, healthcare, and Supreme Court. Those are the issues that they need to hammer home more than anything else. And I had mentioned a couple weeks ago that this issue in particular resonates with Black men voters as well as Black women voters. And so I think that people have to understand that economic issues are issues that all demographics are interested about. And it's a top issue for many people, COVID being second, depending on whether you're talking to Republicans or Democrats, they switch. But the economic plan is a winning plan if they talk about it and continue to talk about it and really, really push this narrative.
This was a particular chart, Erica, that was put together social media, and they show that it's a real GDP under different election scenarios. If there's a Republican sweep, current policy, Democratic sweep, and what the baseline is. And they show that real GDP and jobs if it took place under Democrats. In fact, one of the groups, I'm going to try to find that ad. One of the groups against Trump dropped an ad that even showed Trump stating in his own words how the economy improved under Democrats.
Of course. And I agree with Reese. I think that particularly with this last stretch that we're moving into as it relates to the election, that those three things are real touchstones that should be hammered because the stock market is not the economy. When you're talking about the jobs and job loss, people want to work because they want to be able to pay their rent. They want to be able to pay for their utilities, and they want to be able to provide for those people that are dependent on them in their households. When you're talking about healthcare, for them to also talk about how this very same regime is in court fighting to take away tens of million people, Americans' health care in a global pandemic where we still don't have a national testing strategy and where Donald Trump believes that his response will be to lie about having a vaccine ready and then also talk about these 33 million people who are on Medicare will be receiving some type of card with a $200 prescription benefit on it, and that's supposed to happen before the election. And then Supreme Court justices for people to see, and I think they've come to realize, but for people to really, really see the impact of the courts and on everyone's daily lives, what these appointments to not only the Supreme Court, but the federal judgeships, what that actually means for Americans, breaking that out so people can understand that we literally are at war and making life and death choices, particularly when you look at that chart and the delineation between what are non-farm jobs and then what are those jobs, the essential jobs that people are working day in and day out. So I think that that is something that could help those people who perhaps were not voting because it's not a persuasion election, but perhaps for those people who weren't voting just because they didn't even know that perhaps they were eligible to vote because maybe they've not had someone really show interest in them around talking about specific issues, that this is a message that needs to go from home to home, from wherever people are, and meet them to let them know you have to participate in this general election.
This is the ad from the folks at Midas Touch. I want to play this before I go to Greg Carr and then back to Dr. Spriggs. So watch this, folks.
Just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans.
That thing right there, Greg, again, this is where messaging matters. What has happened in this country is that Republicans have successfully attacked unions. They have successfully created in the minds of people that if you listen to us, you can be enormously rich one day, but they're going to take your money. Numbers don't lie. If you look at the economy under Bill Clinton, what he inherited from George H.W. Bush, then you look at the economy that took place under George W. Bush, and then what President Barack Obama inherited, and then what he left with, then what now Trump has done, the numbers don't lie. But there's this mindset because the National Chamber of Commerce supports Republican candidates, and what that is, they are representing big business. They're representing CEOs. I don't even understand why the media. I don't do it on here. I don't understand why the media has made it a daily thing. Stock market going up, going up, going up. Like I'm just trying to understand, how has that now become a daily barometer? The stock market is treated like a weather segment in local news. It's on national newscasts every single day, and that's what they've done. They have psychologically created the mindset that, oh, if a Republican comes in, business is going to boom. They're going to get rid of regulation. They're going to slash taxes. But who benefits, Greg?
Well, not Roland. I mean, there's a reason why Bill Spriggs has lent his considerable intellectual gifts to the service of organized labor over the years. Every time my friend and brother opens his mouth, I learn something about the economy. I think, of course, Reese and Erica are right. If this message is drummed enough, it may put this election at least in a position where it'll be a little bit more difficult to steal. But here's really what's at stake. This isn't really about information, in a sense. It is indeed about marketing. And the reason why they include the stock market is because they are speaking to their interests. This is commercial news entertainment media, and that's what's important to the owners. You see, I think a lot of this is being driven by a fundamental misunderstanding of the modern world system and the nation state. Corporations are only situationally domestic. You see, they really don't care as long as they're extracting value and extracting profit. That's why the evisceration of organized labor over the last 50 years has been so important, whether it be in the courts, the state legislatures, the federal legislature. Organized labor is the way you fight back. But here's finally the problem we have with organized labor and in this country. You see, George Lipsitz wrote a book a number of years ago called The Positive Investment in Whiteness. It has been white nationalism that has been used as a wedge to keep those stupid white voters away from their class interests. And as a result, from the end of the Civil War to now, at peak moments when corporate profits have been threatened, the move has been to appeal politically to white nationalism. So people will continue to believe that they can become rich in, by the way, a global capitalist system that is on the verge of collapse. And what you're seeing here in the United States in terms of its appeals to white nationalism is being replicated across Europe. It's in Latin America. As these corporations continue to make uber profits, we've seen a multiplication of billionaires during this pandemic. We've seen the rich get so much richer, and they don't really give a damn about the poor, except when finally, in a moment, you have to have people vote to put the legislators back in that you have bought. And in order for that to happen, you've got to appeal not to their economic logic, which is deeply underdeveloped to begin with. Everybody can't be rich in a capitalist society, but you appeal to the illogical thing. And the illogical thing is race. So you can run all those commercials till the wheels fall off. As long as Donald Trump is holding up that Klan sign and pushing for white nationalist terrorism, those fools are going to go out there and vote against their class interests. And these corporations are going to sit back and laugh as they continue to get Mitch McConnell and them to push through tax breaks and continue to eviscerate labor. And that's what Bill Spriggs, part of his work has been. We got to get this labor coalition together. Otherwise, the L that the people in this country is going to take, it's certainly going to be racial, but it's going to be a whole lot of white people on the street, too.
This is the thing with messaging, Bill. And again, look, this is the world that I live in media. The language often spoken is, if the Democrats come in, we're going to lose jobs. And so here's what happens. Jobs becomes the kryptonite. Every politician, lose jobs, lose jobs, lose jobs. And so then the worker, the consumer, the voter goes, oh my God, that's me. I'm going to lose jobs. So if we vote for this Republican, they're going to save our jobs. They're going to save the jobs. And so it's language. And what has happened is they have successfully created this psychological notion that Republicans are about entrepreneurship, creating business, making an opportunity for you. You can make as much money as possible, but then when you look at income inequality and then you look at how that's expanded under Republican presidents, it's because they cater to those who own the company, not those who work for the company to make those owners bigger and better. That is the formula.
That's the formula, and it's also the ignorance of the American people. The way in which it gets explained to people is the trickle-down story works because if I have regulations, I can't hire workers. If you raise wages, I can't hire workers. You're going to raise my cost. And so people believe that these job creators are actually a thing. And it's that miseducation that convinces them that even though the data clearly show creating more inequality, cutting back on regulations, cutting back on wages makes the economy collapse. Just like you said, what happened? George H.W. Bush can't handle the savings and loan collapse. The economy sags. Bill Clinton comes in, fastest growing economy in U.S. economic history. George W. Bush takes over the fastest growing, most successful economy ever in American economic history and crashes it. It takes him all of 8 years just to get back the jobs that he lost in a little tiny recession in 2001. And then in the Great Recession, he loses all the jobs and leaves to Barack Obama fewer people on the payroll than when George W. Bush took office 8 years ago. 8 years, negative job creation. Then you have Obama having to heal that and then launch the longest consecutive string of job creation in U.S. labor history. The lowest unemployment rate for Black people that any president ever inherited. And this bozo crashes that. So this idea is clear that it's not the way on the record, but in Americans' minds, They don't understand how jobs are created. Jobs are created when you make the pie bigger. They don't get created by you stealing jobs from me. And that's what happens when you cut regulation, cut wages, you cut the purchasing power of workers. You make the pie smaller. You can't create more jobs by making the pie smaller. That's why every time they collapse the economy, because eventually the pie gets too small and there's nothing to eat. And then you got the crows picking. So if you want to change it, we economists have to do a better job of explaining to people how do you really create jobs. And you don't do it by trickle down.
No. You know what? Actually, no. Here's the deal, though. I'm not gonna push back on it, but I'm going to explain it better. Here's actually the real deal, Bill. The problem is, and I will say this, the fundamental problem is that in media they don't have economists on talking about the economy. The reason Donald Trump is in the position that he is in is because networks like CNN and Fox News and other media outlets kept going back to Donald Trump talking about the economy. Look, this actually happened. I was at CNN. I was on the air one day with a Heidi Phillips and somebody else. And I said on the air, the next time Donald Trump is on CNN, we should run a crawl at the bottom that says, this is for entertainment purposes only. I got an email from Ken Jouts, the executive vice president at CNN, who is still there. He is on the management team at CNN. Got an email said, do not criticize Donald Trump when he's coming on our air. And I said, hell no. And that night, Obama gave, it was a speech or something like that. I forgot what it was. Might have been a State of the Union or something like that. And Donald Trump was on Piers Morgan's show. And I got just so sick of the bullshit, I just started tweeting like, why in the hell are we listening to him? There are other real CEOs with real companies we can talk to. But no, what media does is they'll put Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase, to come talk about the economy when Jamie Dimon is not trying to actually speak about the economy from a broader perspective. They'll go to Goldman Sachs. They'll go to these CEOs, but they actually won't talk to folks who don't have to be honest, a vested interest in it shifting one way or the other. That's the problem, Bill. That's the problem.
That's what Greg was pointing out. The point of the media is to underwrite the corporations, and it's underwritten by corporations. So yes, this happens all the time. I have so many students who say, I'm really interested in the economy. I watch Suze Orman all the time. And I'm like, so yes, this is the media giving us the entertainment that underwrites their broadcast and underwrites their perspective. But Americans do buy this trickle-down idea, and it is unfortunate because it doesn't work. And as often as we repeated the error, people don't absorb that it doesn't work. They don't hear enough times. They don't have enough economists on enough times. So thank goodness you do have real economists on. I love when you have Julianne on and others. And it's necessary for us to repeat to our own people. It doesn't trickle down. My grandfather was a gardener. And if you water roses from the top, you get leaf rot. You don't get better roses. You get leaf. You water roses from the bottom.
All right.
By watering.
Great words there. Dr. Bill Spriggs, we certainly appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, back to our Roll Mark Unfiltered video in just one round. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today? at 2020census.gov. Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding of services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.